Hey everyone, once again, this is Nick Pateras and Michael Yalmy here for the Sons of a Pitch, an American soccer podcast. Thank you for tuning in again this week. There is a lot going on in the American soccer landscape, and none of it has to do with the national team, thankfully. We are going to focus on the MLS, we're going to touch on the NWSL, and we're going to hit home the playoffs. Everything that the MLS wanted with this one-and-done format,
the craziness,
is coming true, and we're going to talk every game and every pick and every prediction going forward. If you want to join our conversation like so many of you have, please follow us on Twitter at SOP Soccer, and we want to recognize three up front, Maracana AI, Outside Football, Tyler Kern, and DMR. Thank you all for following us along on Twitter and for messaging us and talking with us. Three up front, great English podcast if you're into English football. Maracana AI, check them out. They're getting into advanced statistics and metrics with soccer, football.
Yeah, sounds pretty interesting.
Check them out. New wave of soccer tactics is going to be driven by AI and driven by metrics. I'm sure of it. Also, we're on Facebook at Sons of a Pitch Soccer. We're on YouTube. Search for Sons of a Pitch Soccer. You can email us, podcast at sonsofapitchsoccer.com, or follow along on the website, you guessed it, sonsofapitchsoccer.com. We are on Stitcher. We're on iTunes. We are on Google. We're on most platforms that you could think of that you listen to podcasts to. Check us out. And new announcement, Mike, your little pet project come to fruition.
Yep, absolutely. So now you can represent Sons of a Pitch Soccer on the streets, at the games, wherever you are, at home, whatever. You can wear Sons of a Pitch Soccer swag. I mean, we've got everything. T-shirts like the one up for the YouTube viewers here that I'm pointing at, as well as maybe the coffee mugs and phone cases and bath mats. I mean, you name it, it's out there. It's sonsofapitch.redbull.
Not Red Bull, Mike. That's the team that underperformed. Our products performed.
I'm thinking about that game. I still can't think about it. It was just crazy watching that game. Sonsofapitch.redbubble.com. Check it out and represent us out on the streets, and as well help our podcast grow by supporting us. And we're trying to grow the game of soccer here in the United States, and every little bit helps.
And I think everyone in my family is just going to be getting Sons of a Pitch swag for Christmas this year.
Yes, Christmas will be nothing but Sons of a Pitch stuff.
That sounds good to me. Well, what say now we jump into the headlines, Mike? You
All
feeling
right.
good? You ready for some soccer talk?
Let's do it.
I am full of lamb and orzo because I'm a good Greek boy, and I'm ready to talk soccer here. So the first big headline to come out of the MLS this week: Sacramento has been awarded the 29th franchise. Sacramento Republic, Mike. How do you feel about this?
Finally, it's been being talked about for a long time now. I'd say, God, probably the real strong rumor started out in like maybe 16, 17.
Yep.
Because they were doing so well with attendance and whatnot. So finally it comes to fruition. They have gotten that MLS team. They're up from the USL. It is the same ownership group, so it's different than, say, like St. Louis, where you've got St. Louis FC in the USL, and it's a completely different ownership group that's going for the MLS team. This is the USL team. This is that franchise, kind of like Cincinnati, right? Yep. Same group, and they're moving up to MLS. Good for them. I mean, I looking at the last few teams that have come into the league with Austin, Miami, Nashville, everything's been kind of centralized, right? So I'm like, nothing on the West Coast. It's got to be either Phoenix or Sacramento next, and they could not wait any longer on Sacramento, so I'm extremely happy that they got it done. I personally don't know much about the ownership group and what it consists of and all that, but it looks like they've got an absolutely wonderful fan base there, and good on them, and can't wait to see them start playing in 2022.
Absolutely, Mike, and you said it. It started 2-3 years ago, seriously picking up on the rumors and the possibility of it, and it was all driven by the great attendance and the fan support that the Sacramento Republic fans have shown over the years. They only started in USL in 2014, and they've had one of the highest fan turnouts year over year, game after game for the last 5 years. By the way, they did win the USL championship in that inaugural season back in 2014. So they've got the talent, they got the fan base. Now it was just a matter of shoring up the additional funds, investors, and finding that location for their soccer stadium. A couple other quick things to note. 2 years ago, the club was planning on the move to MLS. They actually got over 10,000 season ticket commitments when they would join the MLS.
Wow.
Like, the fans are already committed to 10,000 seats, Mike.
That's awesome.
It's amazing.
Before they even started. That's crazy.
Right, and if you really, there was a great interview on the Extra Time podcast from a newspaper writer. His last name's Ream, no relation, I believe, but he gives the breakdown of everything going on in Sacramento. He's living out there. He's been supporting this team for a while, so he actually gives a great breakdown of it. Go tune in to Extra Time to hear that. But, yeah, the exciting news is that it's going to be the same ownership. Really, they were just waiting to get the final investors in, because the expansion fee had jumped up so much over the last several years
right,
that no one expected how much they'd have to raise. So they got the new final investors. They got the site ready downtown in the Rail Yards district. If anyone's familiar with Sacramento, I guess we're going to have to go to California now, Mike. 4 teams out there we got to see.
Let's get to Minnesota first.
You're right. We're
right.
getting ahead of ourselves here. Well, anyway, congratulations to Sacramento Republic for your ownership group, and especially for your fans. This is a big get for the league and a big get for them.
Absolutely.
We're going to stay in California quickly. Wondolowski signs a 1-year deal with the San Jose Quakes. I think I speak for everyone when, hooray, we get to see Wando for another year,
yeah,
and he keep padding that all-time goal scoring record. What does this mean to you as a fan, Mike? What does this mean to San Jose as a team?
Well, I think as a fan, there's nowhere else that you would expect to see Wando play. So if the guy was going to be playing, you know, he's been with San Jose for so long, if not his whole career, damn near. And, you know, I can't picture him maybe going to play for Atlanta for a year, right? Or going to Orlando City. It's not going to happen.
Or he's not going to go to expansion side Sacramento for a year and just help them get underway or something like that.
Right. It looks like he wants to play one more season. Maybe he's retiring after the year, maybe not. I don't know. I don't think he came out and said that he's going to retire after this last season, but I'm glad to see him back with San Jose, coming back so we can watch him keep padding that goal title as much as he can.
I'm kind of anxious to see him get suspended for a game and then go back in the stands and celebrate with and see what he builds on from this past year. Like, he had so much fun doing that. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if one day he's like, I'll just pick up that second yellow card, and you know, we're up 3 goals, down 3 goals. Let me pick up that second yellow, and next match, I'll just go hang out in the stands and have a party with all the fans.
Yeah, if they're playing Cincinnati in San Jose or something the next game, go take a rough slide tackle at somebody and pick up that red.
Whoa, hey, I'm not advocating for injuries here, Mike. That's not what I'm about.
You got to do something to pick up a red.
I go spit on a ref. I don't think anyone would be upset if he insulted a referee in such a manner.
That takes it a little too far.
Okay.
Somehow, some way, we want to see Wando back in the stands. I think.
Okay, maybe he doesn't have to get suspended. Maybe he can just take a personal day or something like that. We'll see. Then again, if on my personal day my boss saw me like tailgating at the company parking lot, like there might be some questions.
Overall, as the team outlook, it's good. It's another veteran presence. It's, you know, he's a captain of that team. He knows how to lead that team. He obviously understands Almeida's system. He's thrived in it this year. I mean, the guy had scored how many goals in the past 2 or 3 seasons?
There were questions if he would ever
it was questionable.
Score 5 goals in a season,
to see if he'd even get to that record. I mean, there were times when we were like, I don't know if he's going to get there, man. He's probably going to retire. He's just not getting it done. Well, he got it done. He's padded it a significant amount. He's doing well in that system, so it's good for the team, and I think it will help the team. And it's not a huge, I'm sure it's not a huge contract. So, you know, it's not like he's going to be taking up a ton of salary. So it's good to, to see.
It shows to player buy-in with Almeida. There have been a lot of rumors. I don't think any of them actually coming out of San Jose that Almeida is gone after this season, after this terrible year, and his system doesn't work, and he's not getting... Those are all rumors that were probably fabricated by the Mexican media who wanted him to come to Liga MX again. Again, I'm just speculating on where those came from, but from what I've heard in other sources, it doesn't sound like it was coming from San Jose at all, or Almeida at all.
Right.
So it shows, Wando signing this 1-year deal shows the buy-in to Almeida, to his style, to his staff, to his technique and system, all that good stuff. And it's 1 more year of having, like you said, that veteran presence, teaching, coaching on the field, all of these young players that Almeida gets to develop now and kind of put his own mark on as they're coming up through the system. So it's great news for San Jose. And I'm still thinking about...
Pause that for a second. It's great. Yeah.
I mean, there's two little girls next door.
Yeah, God, I don't know why they'd be screaming.
Hey, honey, is everything okay inside? Mike thought he heard a little girl yell. So I don't know if it was the neighbor girls or if it was a Lenny. Okay. You locked up the front door, right? I do. Alright, thanks, honey. Love you. Bye. Thanks, brother. Appreciate that.
Yeah, no worries, man.
And great news for fans of the MLS. Now we're going to take a little bit of a shift going from the MLS to the NWSL. We've got to recognize our hometown team, the Chicago Red Stars, who have advanced to their first ever NWSL Cup final. They have been to the semifinals in the past. They've never been able to get over that hump. But just this past weekend, in front of
great crowd,
10,000 plus, they had to release a new section of tickets just to meet the demand of all the fans coming out to Bridgeview to watch the Red Stars.
I'd like to think that we were part of that, and one of our listeners, who is Julio, who sent that message to us there on Twitter and said, "Hey guys, check this out. It's a great deal going on for this game." And we retweeted it, sent it out a couple times, and hopefully we helped in that process.
At least, maybe we can get 1 or 2 ticket sales. We definitely helped them out. Yeah, thank you to Julio for bringing that to our attention as well. But yeah, behind the lone goal of their Golden Boot winner, Sam Kerr, gets them past the Portland Thorns, who have been a thorn in the side, like you can't not say it, of many other teams. Yeah, sorry. Ask anyone at work.
Punchline.
I'm Mr. Dad jokes at work. It drives them nuts, but I think it endears them to me when I manage my team. But anyway, they get past Portland, who's just been a perennial. There's another one. Get it? Perennial thorns, flowers. Yeah, who's been a perennial playoff team, title contender. Yeah, I'm gonna roll tonight, buddy.
Nick, oh god.
And it gets them into the finals to face the North Carolina Courage, who are probably the cream of the crop when it comes to NWSL. Yep. So congrats to the Red Stars, congrats to the fans, and best of luck as you take on the Courage. Work's not done. Red Stars bring home a championship to Chicago. God knows the city needs one.
Yeah, absolutely. Since the Cubs, at least they got it done a few years ago. But
you forget I'm a Southsider, and that really didn't mean much to me.
I'm sorry.
Anyway.
No, Red Stars, good stuff. It's exciting that they're into the final. And North Carolina Courage, from the stuff that I've seen, they're a damn good team. So it's going to be tough, but hey, it's one game. They can do it.
Right. And just go down the rosters of these two teams. The NWSL really does have probably some of the best talent in the world, if not the best talent for a women's league in the world. I'd say the next best league would be the Women's Premier League over in England, who is actively trying to buy Sam Kerr, bring over some of these European or these American-based players to Europe.
Right.
So the NWSL really is garnering a lot of attention, especially in this post-World Cup year. Let's keep that momentum moving, and obviously, let's get the fans out to Bridgeview next season.
For sure.
So we're going to transition back now. We're going to hit up a couple little MLS trivia-ish, historical-type things that have happened, and then we're going to take a quick break, and then in the second half, we'll dive into all things MLS playoffs. So the first thing, kind of a joke that was going around, but not really a joke, more of kind of like a sad reality for the Red Bulls fans in the world. And we're sorry to bring this up again. I know you all saw it on Twitter, but the New York Red Bulls have now been eliminated by 10 different teams in the playoffs. 10 times a different team has knocked them out of the playoffs, Mike.
That's insane.
Now, that doesn't count maybe like they win the first round and then get knocked out in the second round. Like, we're not saying these are all first-round knockouts or anything.
Right.
But 10 teams have eliminated the Red Bulls, and I'm not really sure what that stat means if you really dive deep into it, other than they've just never won the cup,
Right.
which we all know.
I was floored by it when you told me this pre-show, pre-recording. I was like, wait, what? That's insane. Like, you talk about, I mean, just how awful of a playoff history this is. That it doesn't get any worse than that. I mean, 10 different teams is just nuts. I mean, how does that happen?
Yeah, well, here's the one thing to remember. There was a time in MLS history not too long ago where they would take the top maybe 5 teams in each conference, and then the next 4 best teams, regardless of conference, would make the playoffs. So an Eastern Conference team could be playing in the Western Conference bracket.
I remember when, like, RSL won the Eastern Conference Championship or
Yeah,
something like that.
I was at that game in Bridgeview when they beat the Fire in 2010 coming in from
There
the
you
Western
go.
Conference.
There you go.
It was a wild affair. Many, many reasons I remember that game, and if you get me drunk enough, I'll tell you all about it sometime. But it was insane to know that RSL came to Bridgeview and then ended up winning the Eastern Conference that year. So that's just something it's a good piece of trivia for you soccer geeks out there, and it's also just kind of indicative, I think, of just the Red Bulls' playoff history. I wouldn't use it to insult them, but I think it's just illustrative of how they handle the postseason. And I don't think the Red Bulls have been to a cup final.
I do
An
not
MLS
believe
Cup
so.
final.
No, I don't even think they've made it to a cup final. We know they've never won one. But this team, yeah, I mean, they just never can seem to get that elusive MLS Cup.
Right.
They've won Supporter Shields. They've won U.S. Open Cups. They've done everything but win MLS Cup.
I think a good comparison is if you look at, say, the Moneyball aspect of Major League Baseball, where a team can put together an excellent statistical team, and then over the course of a full season, when you have a giant sample that you're working with, you end up coming out pretty well. And in the case of the Red Bulls, being a top 3 to 5 team every year. But then when you've got a one-game playoff series or a home-and-home, and that's it,
Right.
then it's kind of a coin flip. Hopefully your system can withstand it for another round.
Now, I did see some interesting news for the Red Bulls that was out today on Twitter. I was thinking about retweeting it, but then I'm like, I don't know if this is... It just didn't quite seem like it was a great source or something like that. So I laid off of it.
It's Twitter, Mike. Just tweet at random. Come on
Yeah,
here.
that's kind of what I was thinking. But, it's saying that Luis Robles and Bradley Wright Phillips will not be back next season.
Interesting.
That's pretty interesting. I see Bradley Wright Phillips getting up there in age. He got a diminished role this season.
He was
Even when
injured
he did,
for like
he was
half
injured
a year
for
or
a
something.
while. When he was coming off the bench, it wasn't great what he was doing. So I could see that. But the news about Luis Robles that's surprising to me. He has been a staple in the goal of New York Red Bulls for a long time. It'd be interesting to see if he's not there.
Yeah, I wonder where he ends up. The guy's still got some good seasons left in him.
For sure.
I don't know if do you know, is his contract up? Do you think it's going to be a transfer? Did you see anything else? Because I've got to imagine he's going to another team because he's too good not to.
It sounded like they weren't going to re-up his contract.
Man, for the Red Bulls to not get anything for Robles would be a huge loss, and especially from a managerial standpoint, from like a business corporate standpoint, which doesn't sound like the Red Bulls to me. So I wonder how much that actually has traction.
See why I didn't retweet it, Nick?
I see, but then we could have gotten this great discussion going. Anyway.
Yeah. But anyways, the Red Bulls, they just, God, I feel for their fans. I really do.
The next bit of kind of MLS history that we want to talk about here comes in the form of a comment from one of our followers, C. Wheatley, at Jughead1 on Twitter. So thank you, Jughead. Thank you, Mr. Wheatley, Miss Wheatley, for letting us know how you feel about your Philadelphia Union. So we asked, what do you want to hear tonight on the show? And he wants to hear a nice long talk of the historic win by the Union and maybe just how poorly the game was reffed. So, Mike, I know you love talking referees and VAR. It's one of your pastimes to figure out how they screw it up. So we'll get to the VAR in a second. But let's talk about this great win for Philly. Doop.
They
What does
pulled
it
off.
mean? What does it mean, Mike?
It's awesome for that team and that fan base. You know, the supporters there, Sons of Ben, a great supporter section. These fans have been through hell and back with this team. Yeah, they've made some playoffs. They haven't gone through the long playoff drought like, say, Orlando City or Toronto FC. But they've never had a playoff win up until this last match. So this was a big step in the right direction, a huge moment for these fans and that team. I know when I was tweeting out the game there in the beginning of the game and New York went up 2-0 pretty quickly. One of my tweets was like, man, I really got a feel for these Duke fans, man. Like, this was their year, right? Like, they had done so well all season, and then they kind of slipped off a bit at the end, but you expected them to hopefully at least get a win at home, and it did not look good those first 20, 30 minutes. Andre Blake was screwing up left and right.
Some of the worst goalkeeping I've seen in a long time.
I mean, him and Hamid, which we'll get to later for DC United, there were some errors that I'm like, dear God, these guys are like two of the best goalies in MLS.
Supposedly,
I think they are. In MLS play. Maybe not national team play, maybe not all around, but MLS-wise, yes. And they were just playing like crap. So then, of course, it was this back-and-forth crazy affair that was one of the most exciting games that I have really ever watched. I mean, it was really that good. It was kind of fun, so I did a bracket with my kids, and I'm like, all right, who's picking what? So me and my son had picked the Red Bulls. Two of my daughters,
which, you know, is par for the course with your picks.
Exactly. If I pick it, they lose. Picked Philly. So we're watching the game, and my son's like, yeah, let's go Red Bulls. We want the red team. And we're like, yeah, we got this. The girls were like, this is stupid. I'm not watching it anymore. We're going to lose. And then a few minutes later, they started to come back. Awesome game. And then by the time, you know, once Philly got that goal and got into it, man, everybody was glued to the TV. It was a fantastic game.
Yeah, I even got my wife to get into that game with me while we were watching it, too. There was a lot of great play. We can talk a little bit more when we actually get into the playoff recap. But just from a sense of history, like, this is awesome for the Union because it kind of validates everything they've been doing over the last several years. Jim Curtin implementing different systems. Like, he first kind of played like a bunker and counter, and then this past year wanted to do more possession. They got to the U.S. Open Cup finals like last season, and then just, you know, fell apart against Houston. So to see them get this first ever playoff victory while Curtin's on the hot seat, while you're questioning whether or not your DPs are good enough, Marco Fabian's coming off the bench,
right, which is surprising.
You know, Ilsinho, who's supposedly one of their best players, he's in the super sub role. Like, you've got Brendan Aronson, you're developing this young American talent. It really kind of validates everything they've done over the last few years. Jim Curtin, maybe he gets to keep his job or get an additional extension. I think they extended him a year after this season. So maybe he gets an actual bigger, better deal. Or maybe now Philly's like, okay, we have something that works. Let's open up the pocketbooks. Let's go get some big players. Let's go buy some players, and maybe we can stay top 3 in the Eastern Conference for the next few years. Because let's see, DC's down, Red Bull's down. You've got New York City and Atlanta up, and who else in the Eastern Conference is really going to challenge where Philly's sitting right now? Orlando hasn't proven it. Chicago, who knows what's going to happen with their roster, with the new ownership and with their coaching.
Right.
Who else in the East? Cincinnati's got a huge hill to climb from this year.
New England Revolution.
The Revs, that could be it. The Revs could be challenging. And then Toronto, we'll see what their roster looks like over the next year or two.
Minus that horrid stretch after the CONCACAF Champions League. Toronto FC, I mean, 2016, 17, now 19. They've been formidable. You know, when I look at that bracket now and I see in the Eastern Conference those 4 teams, I'm like, yeah, those are at least 3 of them with TFC New York City and Atlanta. Those I expect to see there all the time. Just based on the payrolls they've got, based on the support that they've got. That's kind of what I figured. But, you know, Philly's got a chance to really cement themselves in a top echelon of the Eastern Conference for a while to come. They've got the young talent. And, you know, why would you even think about getting rid of Jim Curtin at this point? You hung with the guy through thick and thin for a very long time, and now he's finally delivered on this. You got to let it run now.
Absolutely. So thank you Jughead, thank you, Wheatley, for writing in. So I'm going to play this real quick for you, for all the Duke fans out there. Hopefully y'all can hear a little bit of the Duke. All right, we got it. We're going to get back to soccer talk now. The next kind of bit that he asked in his question, Mike, was about VAR and the officiating. What was your impression of the officiating during this game, and maybe the playoffs in general? Do you think that the refs decided any of these games?
No, I don't. It was funny watching this game. I saw a few things that were missed, and but there was nothing that I was like, oh man, one team is just getting screwed. This is a horrible refereeing job. Yeah, it's the playoffs. It's a one-game type scenario. You're gonna have it happens in all sports, in hockey, and probably in baseball. Baseball's more cut and dry, but you let them play, and just if there's some fouls and stuff like that, you just let it go. If you start to lose control of the game a little bit, then you reel them back in.
But if they're tackling within the context of the game,
right,
you're good. If they're tackling out of revenge because they don't like the guy, then that's when you need to go to the whistle and pull out a card, maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it was. I didn't notice anything watching that game, and I watched it from minute 1 to minute 120. I didn't see anything that was like, oh man, this was horrible. I can't believe that he didn't call this or that they called that, or it was just a good playoff game. Let these two teams duke it out, which they did.
Dupe it? And did you say dupe it out?
I said duke, but
dupe
it out would work in this one. But it was exactly. I mean, this game was a classic. You can't go wrong. It was a great game. Let them go after it. Dupe it out, and the dupe came out with the W.
There you go. I don't really remember seeing it. I didn't get to watch all 6 playoff games. As I tweeted out too, I had to watch my University of Illinois somehow with a last-second field goal beat number 6 Wisconsin for homecoming weekend. So I did miss a couple of the games. But yeah, I don't remember seeing anything that really stood out where I think the ref changed the outcome of the game or affected a momentum or a time period of play or anything like that. I think they were pretty good on the whole. But what the question kind of hints at is, if we've got VAR, why aren't we using it? And if we are using it, and if we are going to use it, then why isn't it being used correctly? Type of scenario. And I think this is kind of a game-to-game thing. Like, people are going to focus in on one missed call or call that didn't go their way or whatever the case may be. But the reality of it is, we had 6 games, 90 minutes of each game, plus however much stoppage time and all the ones
3
that happened too.
Time, right?
Like, throughout the course of all of that time, how many decisions and how many non-calls is the referee going to have to make? So to only be focused on maybe 3 or 4 of them, I think that's a pretty good ratio. Not that I'm defending the referees, but maybe the system is working.
Yeah. I think something that what I noticed was, as a neutral watching that game, because I picked a certain team and they lost, but as a total neutral, really don't care who wins that game. I didn't see anything crazy. And I know I can say that about being a neutral and being a diehard, because man, when TFC's playing, I'm like, what? Oh my God! He touched the back of his heel. He got that was a penalty, straight up penalty, no question about it. How did they not call that penalty? Where's VAR? But when you're a neutral, you're like, oh yeah, no, okay, got it. So you got to take the goggles off a little bit.
And I've watched games with Mike that's exactly like he sounds, sober. So you can imagine watching a TFC game with him after he's had a couple.
Just imagine that with a little more profanity.
Listen closely. You can hear the glass and the drinks clinging around there. Yeah. So with that,
anyways, it's time for a break.
We're going to take a quick break, hear from our sponsors, and we're going to come back in the second half and talk all things Audi playoffs. For the sons of a pitch.
Cheers.
We're your hosts. I was too big. Zip. I only drink scotch with you. There's like 2 people I drink scotch with. You're one of them.
Oh man, you'll be.
The other one's the guy who bought me that bottle.
All right, everybody, we are back and ready to talk MLS Roundup. This is where we're going to talk about the crazy, awesome, wonderful, amazing, beautiful new playoff format of the MLS playoffs. Nick, holy cow, what a weekend of games. This was amazing. I mean, after the first couple games, people were like, wow, this is really working out, and it did not disappoint at all. Great games, lots of extra time, lots of goals, everybody going for it. No crazy, all right, we're going to sit back and just kind of hang out for the first game, maybe try and get an away goal, maybe, and then the second game is a real chess match, and then maybe it breaks out at, 30 minutes left. This was just go for it, hardcore, and home field advantage. It really panned out in the favor. 5 out of 6 teams won playing on their home ground. So that is very, very important, and it does make the regular season that much more important because it's important to get those games at home. It's important to get a bye as well. The leader of each conference, LAFC in New York City, they didn't have to go through any of that.
Right. Especially as we see how injuries have mounted, like having that bye is all the more important.
Plus, with these games coming 3-4 days after the first round game, you got some teams that played 120 minutes that are going to be a little rusty. Now they got to go on the road and play, and you got a team that's been sitting there. Now the rust might be a factor from not playing in a few weeks and 18 days or something like that they're talking, but still they're going to have those restful legs. So really a good win for the MLS, I think, in this one with switching it up. So do you have any thoughts on that before we get to the games?
I agree with everything you're saying here, Mike. This is what the MLS wanted. They wanted to be able to say, this new format is more exciting. This new format gives you an incentive to win in the regular season, not just try to make the playoffs. Now, certain teams who don't have the talent to compete for a top 4 spot, making the playoffs is your goal, but it does give you that extra little incentive to finish in the top 4, to really go for it during the season. The games mean more. It's a reward for your fans because you get the home game. It's a reward for your ownership because you get the concessions and the ticket sales. And you get all that stuff for getting that extra home game. Whereas as long as you make the playoffs in the old system, everyone gets a home game. Hey!
Yeah.
So it's everything the MLS wanted it to be from a business perspective and an entertainment perspective. Personally, Mike, to me, it's the first time I really felt like the MLS playoffs were like this event that I wanted to be a part of. Like, I wanted to watch all the games. Unfortunately, I couldn't watch all of them between the Illini and a little kitty birthday party I had to go to. Shout out to Pump It Up Glenview. Always a good time. But the games I think I watched 4 of the 6 games.
Okay.
It was an event for me. Like, I enjoyed it. I was glued to the TV. I got my wife involved. She came down and was watching a couple of the games with me. Like, my kids are tiny, they're little kids. They're kindergarten, preschool here. They're like, are we watching more soccer? Yeah, like, they were ready for it. This was an event, and I really enjoyed it from everything. You had MLS hyping it. You had the clubs hyping it. You had guys like us doing podcasts hyping it. It was a lot of fun. The only downer I got was from all the crazy people on Twitter, which is most of Twitter, who are like, well, this is so good, so we should do Pro Rel in MLS because it would be even more exciting. I'm like, I don't even want to get into this on like MLS's banner weekend here. Like, stupid argument, go away. This is not timely. As we would say, this argument is not ripe, as I would say as an attorney. But anyway, great weekend. I was a fan of it. Did you notice the scotch kicking in a little bit here?
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit there. So I think it's time we get into some of our replay. Or
Absolutely.
Replay, rewind, whatever you want to call it. Recap,
roundups, whatever. Yeah, so...
where do you want to start, Mike? Where do you want to start? Out west, as we round them up, giddy up?
Yeah, I mean, we can start out west. We talked about 5 out of 6 home teams winning. Let's start with the one away team that did not win, or the away team that did win, and that was the LA Galaxy, went into Minnesota at Allianz Field and got a 2-1 victory over Minnesota. And can you believe it? Neither goal of the two for the Galaxy was scored by Zlatan.
I believe it, because I'm pretty sure Minnesota's game plan was, as long as Zlatan doesn't score, the Galaxy aren't going to score. But they forgot that they still have to play average defense on the other 9 attacking players, or 9 field players that are out there. And I forget who got the first one for the Galaxy, but then Dos Santos with a beautiful curler.
Legit. Yep.
Or Legit gets the first one, thank you. And then Dos Santos with a beautiful curler to put the game away for the Galaxy.
Yeah. I mean, Minnesota clawed back and got one back after they were down 2-0, but it was not enough. At that point, you could tell it was over. Galaxy with a good road performance. Minnesota played okay, but there was some questions, and Adrian Heath has taken a lot of heat for some of the lineup decisions that he had going into this game. Darwin Quintero off the bench. Who else? There was a couple other players that was surprised. The rookie, the kid that was up for Rookie of the Year, and Mason Toy. So, there was, I think his name was Dotson. He didn't get on the field, I believe, at all. So it was surprising from that standpoint in a one-off game. If you had the two legs, it might be different, but I guess he knows something we don't know, what's going on in training, what's going on in the locker room, but he has to take heat for that, and especially with that loss, he will take the heat, and he has.
Yeah, absolutely. Regardless of what's going on, Quintero is still your best attacking option.
Right.
And you need goals. Like, we saw Minnesota have a few quality opportunities in that first half, early on in the game, and they failed to convert. I think Dodd had a good, or no, Lod. It's
Lod.
L-O-D, but it's not L-O-D.
Yeah.
He had a good opportunity that he missed, and I don't know if Gregus had an opportunity missed early on. He did come up with the goal in the second half to give him a glimmer of hope.
Right.
But you're right. If you can't score and take advantage of those early opportunities, you typically don't win games. And to me, that's been a trend throughout the entire season. You saw it, especially with the Chicago Fire. How many missed shots did they have in the first half and then end up losing by 1 goal, conceding in the second half? All that kind of thing. So, Minnesota, their roster was an odd makeup to start the game.
It was.
It's similar to the U.S. Open Cup game, which, oh my goodness, why are we surprised that they lose to the Galaxy in this game? You have a similar starting lineup in your Open Cup final game that you also lost.
Right.
Because you couldn't score goals.
Right.
So Minnesota's got a lot of questions going into this offseason. Who's going to be their goal scorer if Quintero is in the doghouse or not on Heath's list, if they're going to be moving players. The defense looks okay, but you know what? Opara's getting older, Alonso's getting older, and honestly, there was one play, and I'm like, congrats to Ike Opara on Defender of the Year, but there was one play where Zlatan dropped out of the 18 to go get a pass, and Opara just tripped and fell, and it just looked bad, and Zlatan was able to play a ball right past him.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a lot of question marks in Minnesota, and as I pointed out in a previous podcast, we're thrilled that they made the playoffs, but 2/3 of all MLS teams have made the playoffs one time in at least their third year. Right. So what they're doing isn't anything different or special or whatever. Maybe it validates their process, but I think it's a false positive. They need to make sure they can make the playoffs for 2 and 3 and 4 years in a row to build on that experience, to develop a player base, and then start hopefully competing for cups.
Yeah, I think they've got a decent core. I wouldn't go too crazy with rebuilding the roster and whatnot, but that home field advantage in Allianz Field, it was special. During this game, it was you could really see an awesome amount of just enthusiasm and atmosphere that was in that place. So, I think they've got a good base to work off of. How exactly they go about turning that corner and becoming a big time contender, I'm not sure. We'll leave that up to them, but
especially in the Western Conference. Now, maybe with Sacramento coming in, but you've got Miami and Nashville. I'm assuming they'll be in the East. St. Louis, maybe St. Louis and Minnesota then stay in the West. But Minnesota in the Western
Austin
Conference,
as
man.
well.
Austin,
yeah, in the West.
Yeah. So they're gonna have to be competing with LAFC, Portland, a new Sacramento team in a couple years. I think they're coming in 2022. I think that's their target year. Like, it's going to be hard. It's going to be really hard. So maybe the playoff formats change. Maybe they expand it to 8 teams once we get to 30 MLS teams or something like that. But it's going to be tough for Minnesota.
Yeah, but good on the Galaxy. I mean, and again, kind of a side note too, Minnesota is you lost a game to a Galaxy team who has a lot of big money talent. I mean, it's not like this team was, you got a Minnesota side who their biggest paid player is, Grey Goose or Darwin Quintero, or
I think
Quintero's the highest paid, but like not big time numbers. When you've got a team that's got Zlatan, Jonathan Dos Santos, Romain Alessandrini, these are some big name guys. So it's not the end of the world that they lost this matchup. So with that, I think that's enough said. What do you got?
For some reason, it felt like the mic came unplugged. No, we're good. Mic is good. My apologies.
Romain Alessandrini, these are some big name guys, so it's not the end of the world that they lost.
So moving along to another Western Conference game, this one being Salt Lake hosting the Portland Timbers. This one was another game that was just crazy, back and forth, awesome game to watch, big time chances, everybody giving 125%.
Whoa, 125%, Mike.
Maybe 126.
You're a numbers guy. I don't know where you're pulling that from. All right.
But Salt Lake gets this one done.
You ever balanced an account spreadsheet or anything, and you're like, 126%? How'd that happen? No?
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Crazy numbers happen all the time now.
All right, that's fair. Okay, sorry. back to RSL Portland.
So RSL at home at the Rio T gets it done.
Call it by its right name, Mike. The Riot. Rio Tinto, the Riot.
Yeah, I like the Rio T better. Sorry.
I think Riot more appropriately sums up how the fans in that stadium are and just the insanity that could happen in Salt Lake City.
Yeah, absolutely. The weather was definitely some of the insanity with the rain and the snow and all that kind of stuff. But Salt Lake gets it done 2-1 over Portland. A lot of brackets got busted with this one. I think a lot of people picked Portland. And
I would not be a lot of people.
No, you were not. I was.
I said it early on that I think this is RSL's dream bracket. That if they could beat Portland, they got a shot against Seattle, and then could go on to the conference finals. And God forbid Dallas beats Seattle, that would be the dream for RSL. But that didn't happen. We'll get there next.
Yeah.
So RSL, sitting pretty, looking good right now.
Yeah, absolutely. They get past Portland 2-1. Jefferson Savarino with a late winner in this one, 86th or 87th minute. Real exciting stuff. Great game to watch. And it all falls off for Portland. Rough year for Portland.
So
overall.
We ripped on. We didn't rip on, but we questioned Adrian Heath and his lineup choices and some of his decisions that he made for Minnesota and whether or not that hampered their chances. We got to ask the same thing about Giovanni Savarese. I mean, this guy, last year he pushed all the right buttons and got Portland to the finals, losing to the team of destiny, Atlanta United. This year, not so much. He's had about the same roster. I'd say the Western Conference was as weak as it was last year, or at least on par with the quality last year. So, what happened? Why isn't he starting Diego Valeri in this game? Why is he keeping Andy Polo, who doesn't score goals despite being a striker, as a striker? I'm not quite sure what he was thinking. He lost a little bit of the defensive power from last season with his roster, but at the end of the day, it's essentially the same Portland team. And the fact that they underwhelmed throughout the season, and the fact that they really kind of underwhelmed during this game, I don't know how much you put on the players and how much you put on Savarese.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good mix of both. Portland, I think they really had a rough go of it with the stadium, being expanded and having to go on the road for I think it was the first 9 games, maybe even 10. That really screws your season up. because if you don't get good results on the road in that beginning, you're in a hole, which they were. Then they have to climb out of that hole, which they did. And then you kind of get this false hope because you have games in hand and you have a shit ton of home games coming up where you kind of feel in MLS, you're like, oh yeah, home games, we got that. We're going to win, and we've got a lot of them, so we're fine. The urgency was never there. And I think with you combine that with the amount of, lineup issues that he was having. Obviously, there's some type of rift going on between Valeri and Savarese.
There's a contract negotiation, a contract dispute with the team.
Right.
So the people who are supporters of the club and everything are like, well, Valeri was hurt and they're watching his minutes and he wasn't 100%. But then the conspiracy theorists out there are like, well, they're in a contract dispute, so he benched him to make a point. And to date, the dispute has not been resolved. And hey, after that performance, it might not be.
Yeah, I don't think we'll see Valeri playing another game for the Portland Timbers. If you want my personal opinion, I think he'll, either. I don't think he'll be in MLS. I think he'll go somewhere else, in another.
He can go back to Argentina and play
for
for probably an average team down there at this point in his career.
Yep.
He's definitely an MLS Hall of Famer. There's no doubt what he's done. He's won cups. He's won MVPs. He has 70 goals, 70 assists.
Yeah,
like
great
he's only
stat.
one of like 4 or 5 MLSers to ever do that.
Right, great stats overall.
So he's clearly an MLS Hall of Famer. But yeah, he might have played his last game in the United States in the league. The other thing to point out, RSL came out and just dominated the first half. Like Portland did not look like they even belonged on the field with RSL that first half. Part of it was Portland's lackadaisical approach. Most of it was RSL just came ready to go at the riot.
Yeah.
So I would love to see them come out like that against Seattle. And if they can capture that same 45 minutes and then maybe convert on just 1 or 2 of those chances, we'll see how Seattle performs chasing the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's it for RSL Portland. Again, I picked it. Mike didn't. Most people didn't, though. Don't feel bad, Mike.
That's okay. With my picks and predictions, how bad they are, I'm used to it. It's fine.
So the last game of the Western Conference was Seattle defeating Dallas in a barn burner here, 4-3. I mean, Seattle's up, Dallas is up, Seattle's up. Like, it was back and forth the entire game. Jordan Morris gets a hat trick.
Yep.
I think that's the first Sounders postseason hat trick in their team history.
Yeah.
And considering they've made the playoffs for 11 straight years since they got to the MLS, that's a huge feat. Huge confidence booster for Jordan Morris coming off disappointing games with the U.S. men's national team. Seattle looks good, Mike. The defense a little shaky against the hot Dallas team, though. So what were your takeaways from this game? What do you think Dallas is going to end up doing in the offseason?
It was a great game to watch, back and forth. Really exciting to watch. Goes to extra time. It was just one of these games that really made this weekend great. Was you couldn't take your eyes off this game. What I see for Seattle, I think they were the better team all season long, and I think that they scratched this one out. I don't know if I'd call them the better team against Dallas. I think Dallas was probably the better team in this game, but Seattle had the best player, and that was Jordan Morris, who was just finding his way to the end of crosses and getting in the right places at the right times. So it should set up a very interesting matchup with Salt Lake and Seattle in the next round. Dallas, where do they go from here? They've got tons of talent. They do have a good team. I think they're just a few big pieces away. They have got to spend some money and bring some big-name players in. And, maybe
it's
two.
not Dallas's MO. I think they're going to keep developing those players and hopefully build their team.
And if they want to win an MLS Cup, that's what they're going to have to do. You can't compete with the LAFCs, the LA Galaxies, the Toronto FCs, New York Cities, Atlantas, if you don't have one guy that's a real big-time game changer. So that's, I think, where they have to go. They have the core. They have a lot of talent. They just need to get that one piece that's going to put them over the top.
Let's turn our attention to the East and start with your favorite game of the night, Mike. Toronto's kind of okay performance for 90 minutes and then all of a sudden explodes for 4 extra time goals to beat DC 5-1. What do you think about that?
First of all, I'll correct you. It was not just an okay performance by Toronto.
Yeah.
It was a great performance for that 90 minutes. It really was. When this lineup came out, Nick, I saw it, and I was looking for Josie Altidore because I actually picked DC to win because I didn't think Josie was going to play.
You're just doing Toronto a favor by picking against them.
You're right. And I'll be picking New York City in the next matchup. But, look, no Josie Altidore when I'm looking through this lineup, and I'm like, oh, okay. He's not in the starting 11. Expected that. Looking through the subs, he's not even on the bench. I'm like, this is not good. We need something up top. When Josie has not been playing for TFC, we usually don't win. We might pull out a draw, but we usually don't win. And then I'm looking through it, and there's no Omar Gonzalez. The guy has been a big reason why TFC has turned around this season, and he's out too. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like, we're screwed. There's no way. Like, maybe because it's BMO Field, we might get a result, and DC hasn't really, lit the world on fire. Haven't scored a bunch of goals, but they have been staunch defensively. So I'm like, oh, this is not good. Probably going to lose. And then TFC came out and really played a great game. Great possession game. They weren't getting caught out on many counters. There weren't many chances for DC United. Bill Hamid makes a huge error in the first half. Marky Delgado is right there to clean it up. And TFC's got that 1-0 lead. Had control of the game, the entire game. I mean, when I watch a game as a diehard TFC supporter, 9 times out of 10, very rarely do you get those games where you're like, yep, we've got this. Unless the year was 2017, which is pretty much every game you're like, yeah, we got this game. But hasn't happened since then, definitely didn't happen before that. And just had that sense that it was going to happen. And then all of a sudden, last minute, 2 minutes left in stoppage time, and a defensive mistake, and boom.
Off a corner kick,
right?
Set pieces.
Set piece, and there it is. They tie it up, send this game into extra time, and that's when TFC completely just blew the doors off, and Richie Larea with a great run down the corner of the box in and takes a great shot, beats Hamid. They take the lead. Osorio gets on the end of some just craziness in the box, hits a laser from just outside the box right into the bottom corner. It was just unbelievable to see that team respond the way they did.
Well, as the joke was on social media, TFC did not want to have to go to penalty kicks, so that's why they made sure to win it in extra time.
Absolutely, because if they were not going to win in penalties, I don't think they will ever win another match in penalties as long as Toronto FC exists.
Moving on to the next game, we already touched on it a bit. The Union beat the Red Bulls 4-3. Again, we talked about what a historic win that was in the first half of the show. And again, shout out to Jughead C. Wheatley, our resident Duke supporter and Union diehard. Thank you for tweeting at us. Keep celebrating, man. Keep celebrating all the way to the next couple days until you got to take on Atlanta United, because I think that's where the dream dies for the Union. Last game of this first round, first game on the schedule, last game that we're talking about, Atlanta United beats New England Revolution 1-0 down in beautiful Mercedes-Benz Stadium there. It was a little iffy for Atlanta. And then you had Miles Robinson out. Parkhurst gets hurt, dislocates his shoulder, and it's been announced now that he is out for the remainder of the playoffs. So Parkhurst had his last game. He's retiring after this season, when his season is effectively over. And somehow Atlanta squeaks out the winner. Franco Escobar gets the goal off a beautiful play, a little dummy, and he slots it home far post. Now Atlanta moves on to play Philly, Mike. Great season for the Revs. They turned it around that second half. Arena comes in, changes the culture. Charles Gill and Gustavo Bo step up the level of play on the field. And the Revs have an excellent springboard for next year.
Yeah, absolutely. The Revs definitely played a much better game in this game than they did in the Decision Day game. But it really didn't matter for them. In the Decision Day game, there was nothing there. They were just trying to figure out Atlanta's game plan a little bit. That was clear, and they did take some notes, and they did well. This game was very, very tight. Atlanta did have more of the chances. It could have been 2. It could have been 3. New England might have gotten 1 on the board, but it was definitely a close matchup. But the deserved team won. Atlanta is the better team. setting up a great matchup with Philadelphia. I'm excited. These next games are going to be lots of fun. We've got, they're coming up fast and furious. We've got them Wednesday night, tomorrow night, or tonight, depending on when you're listening to this, and as well on Thursday. So definitely coming at you fast and furious here in the playoffs. Now we've got to chat a little bit about our bracket challenge. So when we decided to do this, we put out the rules and regulations. The winner is going to get a Sons of a Pitch soccer T-shirt, and if we hit 50 entries, we were going to put out a $25 Amazon gift card as well. However, we fell just short of that mark. 49 entries. Are you kidding me? 49? Really? So with that, at least I get to save $25. Don't have to put out an Amazon gift card. But I'm just kidding.
Hey,
49 is close enough. We're putting the gift card on the table.
Hey, thank you, Mike. And hey, we're growing. Last year we did this. We only had, maybe like 12, 15 people or something like that.
15 to 20 in
so
that
now
range.
we've got 49 people doing it. We're going to keep growing. So we only have 2 people in our pool that have a perfect bracket so far. The bracket 11 straight by Dave, and the bracket MDS is so hot. Just kind of pains me to say that.
I saw that
and
bracket,
it's,
Dave. That was
hot
good.
with 5 T's on it. MDS is so hot from Stephanie. So congrats to Dave and Stephanie.
Okay.
You won the opening weekend.
Yeah.
But we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 other people right behind him who got 5 out of the 6 games correct, including myself and my wife, and I think your wife too, Mike.
Yeah.
Picked better than you did for the first weekend. So, unfortunately, everyone got at least one game right this weekend. We had a couple entries, Bella and Andres, who got 1 of 6 games. So, Andres, RBNY1's MLS Cup. So he's a Red Bulls fan and didn't do well in the playoffs. Go figure.
Yeah.
Yikes. But anyway, we're going to keep you all apprised of that, and Mike's going to get the gifts out to everybody once the bracket challenge is finalized and the playoffs are over. So thank you to participating.
And again, if you participated in this, and we'll keep you updated as it goes, but because this is through MLSsoccer.com, I have no idea who you are other than your name, your first name that you put down there, as well as your bracket name. So when we're done, whoever that winner is, you're going to have to email us at podcast@sonsofapitchsoccer.com or shoot us a message. Somehow get a hold of us and let us know who you are, and we will get that prize out to you.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we hope that you enjoyed our playoff first round recap roundup. Yeah, that was a lot of alliteration there. And hopefully you're looking forward to the next round of games that are starting on Wednesday the 23rd. With NYCFC and Toronto and
From
Salt Lake.
City Field.
From City Field, beautiful home of the Mets. Starting there and then heading out to Seattle, who will take on Salt Lake. And then Thursday, we've got LAFC and the Galaxy.
El Tráfico playoff edition.
That's right, preceded by the Union.
So I got to say something really quick before we end on this.
Final thoughts, Mike.
If you're an LAFC fan, are you nervous as hell with this game?
Absolutely. This is the one team you haven't beat. You have to be nervous about this game if you're an LAFC fan. But you also have to be confident in the fact that your whole season was built for this moment.
All right. You heard it here first. The last game of the weekend, Philadelphia and Atlanta. The last game of the Thursday night. It's not going to be a weekend. But it's actually an 8 o'clock start, and El Tráfico will finish it off. But
good try there,
Atlanta,
Mike. Good try reading there, pal.
Hey. Sometimes when the scotch kicks in, we can't read very well.
All right. Well, anyway, my picks, NYCFC Atlanta and LAFC Salt Lake. How about you, Mike?
Yep, I've got NYCFC in Atlanta as well. And then I've got LAFC and Seattle.
All right. Well, we'll see if our picks come to fruition. And if you want to join our conversation and join our talk about this, again, follow us on Twitter @SOPsoccer. Hit us up, email podcast@sonsofapitchsoccer.com. Find us on the web at www.sonsofapitchsoccer.com. Thank you to our listeners. Thank you to our sponsors, Donovan Food Brokerage and Nice Premium Iceland Pure Spring Water. We appreciate all you do for us, and we hope you're enjoying the playoffs as well. Shout out to our Iceland listeners out there. Gylfi Sigurdsson of Everton gets a goal. Everton comes back, finally gets a win. ends their point drought, ends their winless streak. Got my Everton jersey hanging right here if you can see it on YouTube. With that, we're going to, again, thank our listeners for supporting us. Enjoy the rest of the playoffs. We'll talk to you next week.